Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. I'm Slim Overton, and we welcome you tonight. And we have a panel of guests, and neither one of them are any strangers to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And we have John, Melissa, Conrad, Nina, Lewis. We're waiting on Lewis Gracie. I forgot about him, and Mark. So you can see their names up on the screen. And of course, our Thursday evening shows is where Leah is normally the host and moderator. She might come in later. She's traveling on a train. I believe she's going. Well, she's traveling on a train, and she says she was trying to come in. And the Colonel will be later. He's at another meeting. So, but we will start. And of course, the theme tonight is the E-Day, which Election Day has come and gone. So what now? And we're going to have a conversation how about the presidential election and how it's going to affect us locally. But I'm going to let everybody sort of have a brief opening statement, and I want to know uh, how how did you take the news after the final election results came in? Was it something you expected? Were you surprised? Were you kind of surprised? But what was the feeling that you had when you first came on? And I'm gonna start with ladies first. Nina, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't surprised. Only because hate to say it, but I didn't see them voting for African American woman, and then I didn't see them doing it. They brought her in at 6 months before the election, so I was not surprised. I'm not happy, but I'm also not surprised. Oh, I'm Nina, Hampton Road Black Caucus Vice President. Thanks.
Okay, Melissa.
Well, I worked the polls I left my house at 5:30 in the morning on Tuesday, and I didn't get home until 7:30 that night. I worked at 5 different precincts. And it was really slow all day. I mean, there were some precincts were steady, but like it got really slow. And so I was exhausted. So I actually fell asleep at like 10 o'clock. And at the time, I knew all of these Midwestern states and Southern states that have, smaller precincts, smaller populations, that those would be coming in early. So I knew that like it was going to be, just kind of going all night about Trump won this state, that state, and it's all the red states. And so I fell asleep. I woke up at 8:30 in the morning. And I woke up to like 23 text messages. And I was in absolute disbelief. And you could, if I go back to the text messages to the people that I, was responding to, and I was like in all these different threads, you can see my disbelief in what I'm saying to my friends. Like, that's not true. That can't be possible. That's not like, are you serious? What am I dead? Like, I legitimately was like stunned. And, and then, again, I was like, after I realized it was true, I was like, white women, like, why am I surprised? Why? Because I worked the polls for 6 weeks straight, several days a week. And, I just, that's all I got. That's all I got.
John, well, most of us woke up in Hampton Roads on election, uh, the day after the election. John, you woke up in Texas. Talk to us.
Well, my wife and I watched it. I watched it until I just couldn't watch it anymore. I felt that I had said earlier in the year that I didn't want to see another black candidate, unfortunately, because that's how we got Trump, and they'll burn the house down to get him out. So I figured they would burn the house down again. I guess my biggest disappointment was in the American people, that there's nothing that this person can't do. Had it been, even if it had been any of the other 16 candidates had won, at least you tried to say the rule of law applies and democracy prevailed. But in this case, I just felt so disenchanted with the America that they had told me we were. I guess that's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
So I actually had to sit down and write something because I had all these feelings surrounding the national election. And thank goodness we had a local election, which had, in my view, a far better result than the national one. So that's been my life raft. But here's my posting. Those who fail to learn from history, civics, and economics are doomed to choosing leaders who are incapable of leading. Unfortunately, when the people who failed to learn outnumber their neighbors who did, the latter are also doomed to suffer the consequences of living under bad leadership, but without the emotional buffer provided by blissful ignorance. It's like something straight out of Dante.
And Conrad, I'm gonna go to you because you had quite an interesting video after the day after, and so you can explain how you feel. And I also want to say we appreciate all those who are watching. So I have a comment that I'm gonna show from someone who's watching. So we're open to everyone, but you all can see.
Hi, Janine. Yeah, unfortunately, it's our own version of the Divine Comedy. But again, that's our own version. I guess I'm reporting this from the concept of a progressive who's in his progressive little bubble, because going up to Election Day, my version of digestion of political information came from basically YouTube videos from channels that I like. So Secular Talk is one I watch a lot, and Majority Report, things like that. And what were they telling me about the week prior to the election? Momentum is building for Harris among wide swaths of groups, especially among women. And it even is going to be largely because of the overturning of Roe, that this is going to spur a version of turnout that we haven't really seen before. And so I spent election day pretty confident in myself, not really thinking too much, because it's like based on what I'm hearing, and I trust those sources because they're using pretty trustworthy sources. At least we thought the polls were, because they're reporting on what people are telling them, and this is the issues that they were driving them to make their decisions. Like that Seltzer poll in Iowa is incredibly respected, and it was incredibly wrong, just like everything seemed to be. And so going into the polls closing at 7 here on the East Coast, knowing that I'm going to be staying up for another 4 hours to watch like MSNBC and CNN and Fox and alternate between those, you see that the score just keeps rising for Trump, and it slowly plods up to no momentum to catch up for Harris. And it's like it isn't looking good. I would much feel better to go asleep, because I don't want to see Karnacki talking too much about how certain specific counties in Pennsylvania are starting to show that Harris is not even doing as good as Biden did. I'm like, if it's happening there in Pennsylvania, it's happening in Michigan, it's happening in Wisconsin. And when I woke up, because I wake up very early to do Virginia Beach Parks and Rec shifts, and they had already called it for Trump at like 3 or 4 in the morning, I'm like, shocked, I guess, is how I feel, because it's like the worldview was completely not what I expected.
Yeah, I can say we had a show the day before, and I felt like she was going to win, even though I felt uneasy about the opponent and what they were capable of. But I really felt like she had an opportunity. What I was surprised in watching the results was how quickly it was happening. You know, how he was just taking control, and then no way I thought he was going to win the popular vote. And then and I guess we can discuss further what we kind of learned from that, and how is this going to affect us here locally, or if any. You know, will it affect us? I know in the city of Portsmouth, we had a show not too long ago where we talked about if it made a difference locally if we had Republican councilmen or women or Democrat or independents. Did it make a difference? And that was quite a lively discussion with different opinions from all the panelists. But so anybody can start. How do you feel that it will affect us locally here? Because everything really starts locally. You know, the old saying, all politics is local. And because everything that happens here affects us right away. And things nationally has to trickle down. But I'm thinking whatever Trump's going to do, it's going to trickle down pretty quickly.
Yes.
If he does what he says he's going to do. So anybody can go ahead and start.
I mean, just start with the Department of Education. The federal funding for Title I schools comes from what? The Federal Department of Education. Pell Grants, where do those come from? The Department of Education. So we are going to immediately feel that if he comes in like he's saying he's going to do right away. I mean, we will, this isn't going to be your standard 24 to 36 months before we really feel it here locally. These things that he's talking about already, just since he's won, he's not backing down from it. He's doubling down on it.
Yeah, remember, this is the candidate who, when he says stuff, we're also not supposed to believe him, while a lot of people also believe things that he doesn't say.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading an article that said that there were a lot of Trump voters who just didn't believe he will be as bad as his own words.
Yep. Well, they're about to find out.
Yeah.
Everybody's about to find out. My parents on fixed income, who are major MAGA Trumpers that I don't talk to already. I already cut them off 3 years ago. Like, I told my like I said, if you are blood to me and you voted for Trump, like, just forget I was born. Like, legitimately, that's how strongly I feel about this. I just cannot, and I can't believe we chose a rapist over a woman. I can't believe we took someone, America chose someone who can't vote because he's a convicted felon. He can't even get a job at the McDonald's that they staged him at 2 weeks ago because he's a felon. And if any of those people that say he's not a felon, if any of them went into a court of law today for a traffic ticket or for a major lawsuit, they would believe that court paperwork. They would believe that testimony. They would think that those documents that are typed up by a court reporter are true. But when it comes to Donald Trump, literally the man has never made a mistake. He is a god to them. They are in a cult, and it is literally nauseating. And I can't even be nice to Trump. And if you tell me like this Trump 2024 or Trump forever, I can't, I no, sorry. Like I have no, I'm not the tolerant left. Okay. Don't mistake that. You need to look up the paradox of tolerance.
If they're not tolerant, we don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, John, do you think, at one point it looked like the Trump campaign was kind of unhinged or sort of losing? And then do you think it was intentional or unintentional strategy that had us, as Malcolm X says, bamboozled? To think that, for one thing, all these different groups were going to play a significant part, and it turned out to be the Latinos and the white
And
women
you
that
can say
made a
it.
big
White,
difference.
you can say it. Say it. White people.
I got myself into TikTok probably about two months ago, just to sit in there and try to gain a following for one, and be able to get on panels. And I watched some of the panels, both the MAGA panels that I got on, and I watched how they treated me and talked to me. And then I watched how the Harris panels treated MAGA people. It was almost 100% different. There were some panels that were real crappy in the Harris, and I will tell you that. And I told my people that I got real close with, I didn't want to be on those panels. But I don't know that we got bamboozled. I think that these people voted. There were people that thought they were voting. I mean, I watched black men saying they weren't going to vote for a black woman. I watched like that poor child, that young lady that put that you put that remark on. You know, they showed a picture. I don't know if that's her or not. You know, but they got what they asked for, and again, nobody else would have been able to do what Trump had done over all these years, up until the time of the election, to have that man call Puerto Rico a garbage place, and that would never been allowed in the Democratic Party. I mean, they put a man out for a comedian for faking grabbing a woman's breast. This man, the president, is out there giving fellatio to a microphone. So the next time people decide they're going to tell me some holiness shit, excuse me, about, you know, how great this man is, I'm like, we don't want our child subjected to a man dressed in drag reading a book. Your president was giving fellatio to a microphone, so, you know, save that for me, spare me that. So no, I don't think we got bamboozled. I don't think anything about Plymouth Rock dropped on us. I think that the people were stupid enough to vote this man in, and now everybody's going to pay for it because he doesn't care about them. You know, Elon Musk doesn't care about you. You know, just think if we had put a man somewhere or a woman somewhere and gave $1 million check away to people, how the Democrats would have been called on it. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy. We've said this for months. Hypocrisy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
Mark, go ahead, Mark.
I call this the stolen election of 2024. And it wasn't stolen in the way that the conspiracy theorists talked about 2020, not people burning ballots or stuffing ballot boxes or any sort of irregularities in voting, but a campaign based on one lie after another. So there's no truth in the narrative that the loser who is now president-elect ran. And about the only thing I have a little bit of faith in that he said was his name. I think that can be substantiated by fact.
Well, they changed that last name several decades back from Trump over to Trump.
My thought is like, all right, my unpopular thought is I blame the Democratic strategists simply because we knew what Biden was before them. So why didn't we choose somebody last year? Because we already knew they around this guy all the time. They knew, but it was going to push him on us anyway. To me, it feels like neither party cares about it. They just going to push what they want to push on us no matter what. So no, I don't think we are bamboozled.
You know, Nina, I think, what I want to ask you, you said we should have chose someone earlier. Are you talking about choosing vice president or some other white man or something like that, that's saying that the only person that could have beat Trump? You think it would have made a difference because the story is telling us because he did worse than what Biden did in 2020. And would it have made a difference if he had surrendered earlier to her, or
No.
should
Um,
he surrender to another person like him?
Yeah, because I'm afraid to tell y'all, even though we have this, I wish America was a great place to really be in. It's not. They're racist.
You're right.
So if we want to not, our main goal should have been not to get this man elected. We didn't pay attention to that. Our main goal should have been not get this man elected. So look for a good candidate. And it's gonna be a white man. I'm sorry. To not get this man elected. If you want to live in pipe dreams or whatever, do it when he not running.
Is an interesting.
I mean,
question.
I can't even
Right.
disagree. I can't even disagree with you, Nina. I just like this country is that racist and sexist and misogynistic. She was the most qualified person to ever run for office. She had worked in all three branches of government. She also had been elected at a local, state, and federal level to serve the people of California. It is just
Yeah.
that's where we are.
You can't.
That's where
You
we
can't.
are.
You can't even speak to. You can't even speak to it because it's so overwhelming that this
Mhm.
man, he can't do anything, and
Mhm.
and the people that support him will tell you that they'll always give you an excuse for anything that he does. I mean, I heard things like he's not a felon. I'm like, but he's on bail. He has to be he's been convicted. No, he hasn't been convicted. It's been thrown out. No, it hasn't been thrown out. He gets sentenced on the 21st. And then when we talk about Agenda 47 and Project 2025 in deep detail to people,
Yeah.
you still, he doesn't mean that. He's not going to do that. But then you've got people
Yep.
like Robert Kennedy, who's clearly not all there. But you talk about how great he is to put him in charge of health. And then you have him saying Elon Musk has pretty rockets that land real well. But Elon didn't build a damn rocket. Somebody else built. Elon bought companies. I mean, Teslas are sitting on the side of the streets right now at the dealerships because he can't sell them. His Cybertruck is just sitting there depreciating. But he didn't build that. He had people. He bought the company. So I'm of the opinion that they got what they wanted. Yes, the country is still real racist. They want us to have a kumbaya moment. I told my wife this earlier. When you have kumbaya, everybody has to be sitting at the table and want to sing the same song. But this is the international poker table where everybody's cheating. Both the allies and the enemies cheat, and they're not telling the truth to everybody, and they're all trying to get something. So it's overwhelming. It's sad to see it because we're people that see it, but it doesn't affect them right now. But when it starts affecting them, they'll see it.
You'll see it. Yep.
But they'll blame it on the other party.
Mhm.
The Democrats did this. The Democrats are sabotaging our program and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, it will never end with them because that is their mentality. That is their mindset. They cannot take accountability. They cannot even hold the man accountable with actual court testimony and documents. On multiple cases. You know what I mean? You pick one. Pick one.
Or the
Pick
So,
them all.
Yeah. So
No,
like
that's
they
not an
can't even
insurrection. Those people weren't really
Yeah.
Trump voters. They weren't Trump supporters, and
They were
Yeah.
tourists.
They're
Trump
playing.
didn't send
They're
them
playing.
down there. Trump didn't go. Trump said on the
They were
election, told
Democrats.
him to fight. He told him to
Listen.
go down there.
I would spoon my own eyeballs out before
know.
I
Oh,
ever
God.
put Trump merchandise on my body and went to pretend to do an insurrection. Okay? I am Antifa. You are looking at it, okay?
Right.
And I would never, ever do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I want to ask. I want to ask. You know, as we talk about locally, you know, you heard about a lot of people not going to work because they didn't want to have to face the the celebrations of the people that they knew about or the ones that they didn't know about that were going to come out at work and celebrate the victory. You know, it's a group on Facebook that I saw, and some of you might be familiar with it. Voices of Portsmouth, and
Oh,
you know they pretty much support Trump. And if you have a good argument on that page, they will block you. But I saw a comment that one of the administrators made today and said, okay, the election is over. And so the holiday season is coming. Let's redirect and just think about the holiday season. You know, the election is over. And I thought about, you know, did y'all do that in 2020 when the election was over?
It
Or
was
did you
stolen.
all fuss and complain all the way up until to the inauguration and after? You know, it's just strange how that comes out. That's why I added that little piece about how it's going to affect us locally, because, you know, we work with people every day. And one of those shows, I don't know if anybody on this feed was on one of those shows. We talked about, you know, I think the colonel, and hopefully he comes on, was saying he made a blanket statement about all Republicans. And I was saying, well, you know, some of them we didn't know were Republicans working in the city or working on grassroots stuff until, you know, Trump came out. And then you start seeing people come out and you saw the Trumpism in them.
Mm-hmm.
How did you all, I mean, I know many of us are retired, but how did you all make out with the people the next day? Because I know everybody knows somebody that, you know, support Trump, you know, on your job or something like that. How did you handle that? Or did you stay home?
I'm gonna go to work. I need to know who these people are.
Well, Melissa, you got an advantage. Anybody that comes in there, you got that needle
Well, look, you know,
that you can put on there.
So I am look, y'all. I'm very lucky. I did stay home. I did not go to work. I had a lot of people checking on me. They were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Nope, no, I'm not. But I'll be okay. But like, I just need a minute." But I'm very fortunate. You know, all of the people that I work with that work in my business, we're all very much aligned. On how we view, you know, participation is at very, very different levels. I'm the most active, but I mean, I just want to share a story about just interacting in general. I had one of my employees call me this morning. She's actually a really good friend of mine. And she called me and I knew that she wasn't at work. And so I answered and she was bawling. She lives very close to me. She was driving her son to school this morning. And she has a Harris Wall sticker on the back of her car. So she's driving to school, take her son. There's somebody driving behind her being very erratic, honking their horn, flashing their lights, waving their hands. Behind her being very erratic. Uh-oh. I hear an echo.
It's me.
Oh, is it you? Oh, sorry. And she's waving her hands. And so she's like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like this lady just is like being aggressive, right? Almost hits her car. So my friend pulls over to let this person go by to get out from behind her and like see what they need to say. And they drive by and hold up their Trump cowboy hat. They almost wrecked their car and were harassing a woman just on the road driving her child to school. And so when she called me, she was terrified. She was crying. She's like, her son is worried about her because she's, you know, bawling and he's like, "It's okay, mommy." And she's got to go into school. Like this is terrifying. You know, everybody knows on my street, that I have all the political signs. And today I was cleaning out my garage because, you know, I can control inanimate objects when I can't control other things. And I was cleaning out my garage. And do you know how many times I heard people scream out the window of their car, Trump? 4 times.
Well, you know, there's been a case of there's been a sort of a rash here in Prairie View and also I think University of Alabama, where kids were given warnings about being black children being sent back to plantations.
Yes.
Paperwork came out on that.
Mhm.
I think that time has started. I always
That's-
thought there was going to be something like this.
That's national. My friend, we know somebody whose son got it today.
Yeah.
That's in Virginia.
And before the election in San Marcos, there was San Marcos, Texas. There were little pamphlets being put out saying, "We know who you voted for." People that had hair signs on their yard, and we've got your address. So, you know, the intimidation. But the difference is, this isn't 1865 anymore.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to get hurt doing this dumb stuff.
Yeah.
This is after they win.
Part, a significant part of the whole movement.
And this is after they win.
Yeah. It's like they need to let you know how they voted in an aggressive way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Facebook friends with someone who I think ran for office not that long ago in Virginia, Jennifer Kitchen, who had commented under another person's comment by the name of, I believe it was John Murray, who he just made a rather sort of passive comment that sort of highlighted how great it's going to be with Trump or something after someone had just said how bad they were feeling about the loss. And she just simply responded that this is a deeply unkind statement. And that's sort of what the movement kind of feels like. It's not just a cult of the personality, it's the behavior of it toward other people when Trump's not even in the room.
Yep.
But they're Christians. They're you know, I'm a Christian.
Oh, I bet this lady she was going to her Thursday afternoon ladies luncheon. She was, of course, it was a white lady. And my friend, who is also a white woman, was like, just this white lady, just crazy white lady, just shows me her Trump cowboy hat. And she's like, why does she even have her Trump cowboy hat in the car? She's like, so anyways, yeah, these people are awful.
And I think
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned about even though nationally you were, you know, distraught, but locally you were pleased with what happened, at least in Portsmouth, on our Portsmouth City Council. Do you think anything that is starting in January that Trump is going to do is going to have any kind of effect on us locally, especially when you made a change that a lot of people in Portsmouth felt was necessary going forward?
Well, of course it will, because the Senate is decidedly going to be Republican. So he's got half the Congress that will do his legislative bidding. And, you know, we are a military area. It's a large part of our economy throughout Hampton Roads. So what they do or don't allocate for the armed forces will have a direct effect on Portsmouth, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, you know, the whole 17 communities in our region. In terms of legislative priorities, our council is finalizing those, and part of the package is what goes to Congress out of Portsmouth, the things that they want funded. So if we have a Congress that's hostile to the needs of the community that are dependent on federal funding, to affect us.
Wow, so the new council is going to they're going to have to hit the ground running with what they have to work with and get in what they can get in. Comrade and Nina, you are Portsmouth residents. How do you feel about well, one thing, were you pleased with the changes that were made on council in the city of Portsmouth? And what kind of effect do you think Trump will have on us?
Someone made an interesting point on that same Voices for Portsmouth group when I had shared an interview that I had with Dr. Whitaker. And they had just, I think it was earlier today, they said all the people you interviewed and endorsed lost. And I thought about that. And it wasn't true outside of Portsmouth, at least inside of Portsmouth, that was true, because I voted for Turner and Whitaker as well, and I believe Thomas. But I'm just thinking that who thusly wins, or people who I weren't able to reach and figure out where they stood on a lot of issues. Dotson, for instance, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what Kitty Bryant's going to do. And there are two brand new faces. So that is definitely people I'm going to want to figure out as soon as January or late December, whenever they get sworn in. Because the duty to track politics isn't just national or state. It's got to be local too.
Tip O'Neill.
So
All politics is local.
Yeah, I was almost pleased with all of the selections in the local election. Just one of them I don't like. But you have, even though they say they're independent, Republicans and Democrats in these local positions. And we pretty much know who's a Republican or who's a Democrat, because you have the Tea Party breakfast on Saturdays, and you have the Democrat thing on for once a month on, I forgot what day it is. So you know who belongs to what party. Now locally, I believe it will, because it's like Trump supporters kind of follow his lead. So whatever he's doing up there, some kind of way, it seems like they try to bleed it here. Like taxes, for instance. I don't understand why there's always a debate about raising taxes. For what? Just leave taxes alone. Our housing assessments go up every year, so taxes are going up every year. So why do they always have that debate when it comes to the budget? So things, it'll trickle down, I believe. It trickles.
You and I should talk. Because there are reasons.
Melissa, Virginia Beach was interesting. It was an interesting race. They even had, was that Virginia Beach that we had the guy, his nickname is Cash?
Yes.
And now he's being sued or accused of, well, whatever's going on. So that was an interesting race. And I thought Sabrina might have had a chance, but it didn't seem to be even close.
Well, so listen, white rage is real at a local level too. Okay. White backlash came back and affected city council in Virginia Beach, because when we had the federal case, because, the city of Virginia Beach has been violating just a reminder for anybody watching or on this panel, that the city of Virginia Beach was found to have been disenfranchising minority voters in the city since 1966, which the Voting Rights Act of 1965 would have clued them in that they had to actually obey federal law, but they just were like, yeah, no, we're white people. We can do what we want. So they were able to do that until 2 years ago. We had our first, the remedy from the federal court was that we had to have 10 districts. So we ran five of our districts in 2022. And then the other half of our districts ran this time. So with the first half of the new districts, we got our youngest, most diverse council we had ever had in the city of Virginia Beach with the new district system, which caused a lot of backlash against the district system. We've had 4 lawsuits trying to stop it. We had somebody try to file an injunction. I mean, to stop this election under the district system, I mean, it's been wild in Virginia Beach, and it is 100% white backlash. And so we got stuck with all the same people, with exception. I mean, Hutch, I was happy Hutch won his race, but it's like, you know, you want to know the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again. Well, we just got the same thing. The only new additions are Cash Green. And then Stacey Cummings is taking Chris Taylor's seat, who basically bought his seat. He spent like I think he raised like $250,000, $300,000 for a city council seat. Like, it's just
Donated to Bobby too.
Yeah. But on the bright side, where white people showed up and showed out, was for our educators. In Virginia Beach, we were able to take 4 out of the 6 seats, I believe we had up. Yeah. And 4 that are, and when I say we, I mean like the collective common sense humans that show up at the voting poll and don't want book bans, and they don't want these MAGA extremists and, you know, these evangelicals, you know, just saying that there's porn in libraries when there's not. And so we won handily, even in the Democratic candidates even won handily against Republicans in Republican districts.
Now, I want to add a couple stats, if you don't mind, because I happen to have on my phone here the results for the city of Virginia Beach based on the Virginia Elections website. And Kamala Harris, as of this point, had over 50% of Virginia Beach's vote at 108,883. Trump, 48.19 at 104,718. Then you may notice the first change is when you get down to Tim Kaine, who has an extra 4,000 votes than Kamala Harris does. Where'd those 4 go? As if policy is going to be significantly different between Tim Kaine and Kamala Harris. You have the House of Representatives. Missy falls below 50% at 47.90 and has got 102,731. So even less than Tim Kaine.
She was not the right candidate. She never was.
I would have a personal agreement to that, but that's a different story. And then you get to the mayor race, I thought Sabrina had a really, really, really good chance because there was significant vote that would be pulled from Bobby's total. I mean, John Moss got 35,000 total votes, 35,164. That is a lot that otherwise I believe would have went to Bobby Dyer if it was like only RK in the race. But she only got 65,085. And I wonder if Chris Taylor's 15,820 had some parts to do with that. And I don't know how much of that is party. And I'm also concerned, considering so many Republicans on the city council level won in Virginia Beach. This is once again, you get to see when it comes to the top of the ticket, Democrats are very popular in Virginia Beach. When it gets to the bottom of the ticket, that popularity loses itself.
Mm-hmm. Because these people think that they can vote with their friendships. Mm-hmm. And they think that parties don't matter at local, and they absolutely do.
I mean,
they shouldn't. They shouldn't.
What Harris got in terms of if it was the exact match, she would have blew Bobby out of the water.
Right. Yeah.
John, for Texas, the home of Ted Cruz. Yeah, it looks like his opponent at one time was gaining some momentum. And
what
you know,
happened?
looking at the map of Texas, I'm not surprised. It's you know, you might as well not have the blue parts in there because it's all red. You know, looking at the map of Texas. So what do you think happened there? Because Ted Cruz, you know, he's still in the Senate, and he's going to be part of that majority, making decisions that's going to affect not only local politics but national politics. So I mean, how many times this guy has to flee, you know, Texas when it's freezing or something like that, or you know, I guess he falls in line with the Trump mystique, you know, Do
Take his,
what you can, do what you want, and nobody cares.
yeah, take his Cancun vacation while people are
Yeah.
dying and freezing in their houses. And that hurt us too because we really wanted to see Colin Allred make it to the Senate.
He was a good candidate.
But you've got to remember that they haven't turned anything red. Beto got real close before. I don't know the numbers, so I can't tell you really how close Colin got. I think he did not do as well as Beto. The argument has always been the border right now, and some of the commercials were deviously they were lies, and you could see the lie if you knew the story, but people believed the story, and a lot of Latinos, not just whites, but a lot of Latinos voted against their own cause. They voted against themselves because if this man ever decides that he's going to really do what he says about deporting people, then when they take Abuelo, who's never been a registered American citizen, they take her out of the house. He's talking about taking the whole house and moving the whole house and putting them in detention camps or retraining camps or whatever the
Internment camps.
well, yeah, we know what the word is, but he's going to make it palatable for these people to do this. But like I said, until it becomes them, they're not going to listen to you. So unfortunately, yeah, Ted Cruz, we could have even lived with Ted Cruz being put out, but
Yeah, remember Trump was quoting the 1798 Aliens Law, which was the one that was decided by the United States Supreme Court for Korematsu, which allowed Japanese internment. And again, you can blame our government over the decades for not rescinding this.
yeah, well, I mean, they still had hanging, and now they're talking about interracial marriage, and I'm waiting to see if
Clarence Thomas.
Well, just not in Clarence Thomas. I mean, J.D. Vance's wife is not a, let's call it like Donald Trump's wife. I mean,
I know.
Let's call it like it is if we're going to call it, but they don't see that because they have that privilege.
Well, they also look at white immigrants very differently than black and brown immigrants, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you can see that even when Ukrainian children needed to come here versus any African country.
Haitian.
Say again?
The Haitians.
The Haitians, they're eating the cats and dogs. Like the man literally said they're eating the cats and dogs. Like what is happening right now?
Yeah. And then they were talking about the voodoo. And I said, have any of y'all, this is one of the arguments we had on one of my TikToks. I said, have you been to Haiti? Because I've been to Haiti on a medical mission with the United States Army. Haiti's mostly Christian. You probably find just as much voodoo if you go down to
and do you know
New Orleans, Louisiana.
And do you know who's to blame for the conditions in Haiti?
Yeah, the French and the Americans. I
the
understand.
French and the Americans.
Haiti used to be the jewel of the Caribbean.
Thank you.
I understand
but but that's the thing. Like they don't.
Yeah. We put these people, we put Papa Doc Duvalier in, and we put in all these other leaders all across these third world countries that are trying to come up to the United States and live. I mean, they're gone, but the regimes are still there. And they're not good enough because they're a different color. But that blonde-eyed Norwegian that's coming in through New York, we're not even going to look at them or the visa overstays or whatever, So,
yeah.
And I have to agree with Nina. Let me say this: I agree with Nina on one point. I think that when Biden said he was going to be the transitional president, and he said he was going to transition, and then he saw what happened at 2020, he thought he could still push it. I think he should have stepped away. He should have done his years and stepped away. I don't know if we still would have won, but we'd had a better chance where a person didn't have just 100 days to put their things together. And put a team together and put it on the ground.
Yeah.
We'd had a chance, and we'd have taken an argument out of their playbook where they said she wasn't elected. She was just put in there. But again,
Yeah.
voted.
she was chasing, I think, about 4 points on a lot of issues, including like the economy. But by the time she became the lead candidate, she was trailing by over 10 points. So she was trending up.
Right, but we're putting the criminal in. That's the
But
crazy.
can we talk about the 18 million votes, y'all?
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's not like Trump has gained more popularity. He actually had
Lost
3
it.
million less votes than he had in 2020. But
A
Kamala
lot of
had
people sat on the couch.
15 million, but 15 million. I mean, I
15
know
million.
there's some problems with there's some problems with some counties in Pennsylvania I've been seeing with their mail-in ballots getting able to get uploaded and being to the reporting software. And I don't know. The fact that it was called so soon
Yeah.
this time versus what happened in 2020, because I remember waking up crying in 2020. I remember that because I thought Trump had won. And then a couple of days later, it was called for Biden or whatever. So I don't know.
it's also important to know, and I found this out today because I did my video last night, that California actually takes a weirdly long time to count all of its votes. So there's a lot of popular vote, I guess, somewhat still missing. But again, it's only going to be a couple more million to add. And yeah, that will go mainly more to Kamala Harris. But it's not like California is 100 to
You're right.
0 in terms of Democrats. It's closer to what, 55 to 45. And there's a significant Trump vote there too. And he still, as Melissa pointed out, was down compared to his 2020 totals. This is not a massive shift to big support for Trump. It's a calamitous fall from the 2020 Democrat support.
Yeah, because a lot of people sat on their hands and sat in their houses and did not vote. That is very true.
Yeah.
And that's that, and that happened the last
There's the
time.
catch.
I think it was 100. So I mean million that just didn't vote the last time in the 2020 election that could have voted.
There were no lines. I mean, I told you I worked 5 different precincts. There was never a line at any of the precincts I worked with exception of from 6 a.m. to 6:15 because people were lined up at the door.
But the thing is, with 45 days of early voting
We did have a lot of traffic.
in Portsmouth, the numbers that I saw overnight and in the morning showed about a third of the vote was early vote.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have less pressure on the polling places on election day with that many people having come in early.
I think in Virginia Beach, we were actually closer to like 50% on early vote.
But they had never called Florida that fast either, because Florida's in 2 time zones, so their polls closed. The ones in Pensacola area, the Panhandle area is in a different time zone than Miami. So when they called that so fast, I was like, "My, that's interesting." And usually they say we're waiting for still votes to come in from the Panhandle before we call Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that statement the whole time I was sitting there. And
But when you
I'm
look
like
at
Conrad, when Karnacki was breaking it down by counties, I'm like, yeah, this is not going to be good, you know.
Yeah.
You know, as we wind down, I want everybody to be able to say where do we go from here. But before we get to that, Mark and the other Conrad and Nina from Portsmouth now, Barnes just lost by 100 and some votes as far as in 4th place.
Barry
Now,
Randall status today that said there's
he
provisional-
said the provisional votes are not in yet because people that had to sign provisional votes had until tomorrow, I believe, to make sure that vote counts. You know, if you sign provisionally, you have to go in there and prove that you really do deserve to vote. So I don't know. Conrad, you said Barry had like 1,000. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But you know, it could make a difference if someone's behind by 100 and some votes. What do
Yes,
y'all think?
yes, it could.
And but it doesn't necessarily mean all those votes went for him. So we still have to wait until at least Monday to make sure that third position is who they're saying won. You know, so we still
This is an at-large system here in Portsmouth, so it's not like we're waiting on one particular division of Portsmouth, which I want to make a comparison size to delegate seat in Newport News. If I recall, that's Cheryl Simon, who had to win by one vote that one time.
yeah. So and
Wasn't
that's
that
a
the
lesson for
coin
those. Go ahead. I'm
Wasn't
sorry.
that the coin flip one y'all had?
Or I think
I
that
think
was
they pulled it out of a hat or something like that.
Yeah,
So that's how you got who you to
rabbit out of
represent
a
you.
hat.
But anyway, that's Portsmouth, y'all. You know, so we still on the edge of, and it depends on who you want. You know, do you want the person that's been projected to win it, or do you rather see Barnes back in there? So we'll find that out. So the plot thickens, at
But it's
least in
like
the city of
500
Portland.
votes. Is it like 500 provisional votes, you think? He'll get? Because he's down by 500.
Mhm.
Down by 500. I thought I saw maybe like 100,
According to the
130 something.
according to the state site, he is at 11,361, and Kitty is at 11,856.
But what about Dotson? Dotson was the one that's in third place.
Oh,
That's
you're
what I
right.
yeah.
You're right.
So that makes it about 130 some votes or something like these down. But anyway, we'll wait and see that, and see what happens there. So everybody, before we go off, where do we go from here? You know, because you heard a lot of people, I think it was frustration, and you know, you heard a lot of people say, I'm never voting again. And we don't need that because like Melissa said, 15 million people didn't vote. So where do we go from here? Do we sit back? Because we have a habit, especially locally. Once the election is over, we sit back and wait and let the people we elected govern and make policy without even. And Mark, I can't say that about you because you're right there challenging everything, which is something we all should do. Hold them accountable because they are not kings and queens when we elect them. They are servants. They are there to represent us. And a lot of times we wait until half the year's gone and they made policy or passed laws, and then we go down there to complain. So as far as locally and nationally, you know, and everybody up here is pretty active in their communities or in different organizations. Where do we go from here, especially, you know, looking at the national scene? We can't just lay down and say, okay, Trump, next 4 years, you know, he's going to do what he's going to do, but we still have to be out there active, preparing for 4 years from now and holding them accountable now. What say you? Anybody can start first.
So, first of all, next year is a gubernatorial election in Virginia. And our history has been that Virginia tends to go opposite the national. We would normally end up with a Democrat as governor in this off-year election. You know, a lot of what we do locally depends on what comes out of the General Assembly and what the governor is willing to sign off on. So in that sense, we're sort of like the European Union with 50 little nation states as part of the big whole. That's going to be a very significant election next year. And we need to be organizing.
Well, I could go next if Mark is finished.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, first, I'd just like to note that y'all can just heard this from me, and don't be surprised if this is what happens. But Bertie's had told me months ago that the plan was if Trump won, which I was like, absolutely no way Trump's going to win. So this isn't going to happen. But now I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is probably going to happen. That Youngkin has a position already for Secretary of Commerce on the Trump administration, which means he's going to, if that is true, which I heard this from a very credible Republican source, like very credible, involved with executive branch Republicans, and good source. And so then Winsome Sears would, rumored to be, obviously would be the governor. And then we'll see if that all pans out. But that, I just wanted to touch on that because that's going to be, y'all just keep that in your little back of your filing cabinet and back of your head. Okay. But what I'm going to say is, in closing, is progressives, if you are truly a progressive, this is a time for you to kick the Dems while they're down. Okay. I think the Dems make a lot of mistakes with regard to strategy, as Nina said. And I think that this is the time for progressives to demand a seat at the table and for some actual listening to understand. And this is the time we do it. I'm going to keep speaking at school board meetings. I'm going to keep speaking at city council meetings. And I have, of course, been down in the dumps like, so many other people. But, listen, like, I'm a white woman. My job today and going forward, like it has been for the last several years, is talking to other white women about their racism. About their, I do believe that all white people are inherently racist. I'm happy to have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever with anybody that wants to challenge me on that. We can have a great discussion about that. And so that's what I'm going to keep doing, because there's so many more people that are affected by this, that will be more affected by this than people that look like me. But we need people that look like me out there and understanding that this is fascism and that this is going to be, in my opinion, the end of democracy in America.
Agreed.
I want to second that.
So I heard that same rumor about Winsome Sears and stuff, but to me, again, my unpopular opinion, we are so distracted between race that we don't even see that it's not about race here in America. It's rich against middle class and below. No one sees that. No one cares about that. No one is paying attention to that. So as long as they have us divided amongst you're black, you're white, you're Latino, we'll never pay attention to the things that we need to be paying attention to. Because if we come together and hold these people accountable for the positions that they are trying to keep, then we can get some things changed. Because they all like that little salary that they're getting and that little power that they have in these positions. But as long as we're divided, it'll never happen. And they'll continue to treat us like anything.
I think that it's going to be a hard 2 years, at least. We've got to hear this voice every day, and we've got to see this administration play out the way they're going to play the administration out. If they implement some of the things they're talking about, then we might not have the chance to vote again. And it might sound fatalistic, but I want to be more realistic, because they're willing to do that. And I hope that the Democrats, or whoever the blue party is, gets their messaging together and they work on the messaging. But I don't think it's the idea that we have to go and find these people in these little red country cities and make them believe what we believe. I think it's that we need to understand. We need to let them want them to understand that they're voting against their own best interests. Arkansas is 48 or 49th in education. If they wipe out the Department of Education, well, there's Arkansas. There you got. There you have it. Those are the things I'm concerned about. But the next 2 years of listening to this man's voice is just going to personally drive John Gantz crazy.
It's going to drive a lot of us crazy. And I have a feeling that that might lead to a rather large, at least in the House of Representatives, swift back into the blue when it comes to 2026. Because that's what helped push me into being a progressive, is hearing the thoughts on policy during the Trump administration. And I realized where I needed to be in terms of a worldview. And then fully adopting that going into this particular election, I felt like some of the party moved back away from me, trying to get votes that were never going to go to it. More of the center-right crowd, at least on immigration and foreign policy. That is something that I hope they come back to, and I hope that it isn't just there because Trump is there. This is going to be something that needs to be persistent. The Democrat Party needs to be more economically populist all 4 years, followed by the next 4 years, followed by the next 4 years, all the time.
Okay, Conrad, does your cat have anything to say? Because I know that eating cats and dogs thing didn't sit well with him. Do you have any comments?
Because we're down in Springfield, Ohio, or something to that effect. They're fun. They had food. It's just he was whining a little bit, so I had to mute my mic a couple times.
Oh, okay. He probably couldn't. Well, anyway, thanks a lot. I want to thank everybody for coming back on to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. Everybody is pretty much doing their own thing now. John, you have your TikTok, Says Who, and Nina, I've seen your interviews, and the city council just waits for you, Melissa. So I want to thank everybody.
I'm all over TikTok too. I see John in there.
So that many years that she should run.
And as many of these kind of shows that we can put out there, because conversation is always needed. We need to have conversations with different people. And I appreciate you coming back and being available to come on our show while you do what you do. Thanks a lot. And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And Leah, safe travels to you. And Colonel, we'll see you next time. I know you're busy with what you're doing. So we're going to say farewell. And by the way, if you watching this live, or you're going to watch it later, make sure you like, subscribe. We want to see your comments as well, and make sure you share this with other people. You know, some of the opinions you might disagree with, and some of them you might agree with. So, and be a guest. Make sure you be a guest on either one of these platforms that most of these guest hosts, I'll call them guest hosts, have. All right. Take care. We'll see you next time.